It is now. Okay. I'm just jumping right in. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. That was exciting.
That's me. Just always a bunch of excitement.
Honestly, though, I feel like that's totally iPhone.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I don't know how any of this works.
You're like technology. Huh?
I try to avoid it as much as possible.
Well, no, honestly, for real though, when I've had when I had the iPhone, because I had the iPhone once, I was always Android. I went Android. Then my husband got really excited about the new iPhone, and then he got it for me, and he got me the whole freaking Apple suite, and it was like, wow, so fancy, so cool. And then I was like, what is this bullshit? It's like, and that would happen to me. Sometimes, like in Safari, it wouldn't let me scroll to the bottom.
Mm,
And
yeah,
I could stretch it. I could see something was there, but then it'd let go and be like,
it was like, nope, not today. Not,
no.
not any day, actually. It's just not gonna work.
That's all right. We have Zoom. Zoom is good.
Zoom works.
Zoom works. Zoom is tried and true. So how are you
Mhm.
doing, sir?
No complaints out of me. Everything is hunky dory. Yeah.
Hunky dory. I love it. I can't, so you're in the East Coast and it's like,
Mhm.
I can see out the window. It's already dark.
It's pitch black. Things things are very depressing over here. We wake up in darkness, and by the time the workday is out, it's darkness. Yeah, it's dark by like 4 o'clock.
I feel like it's like a part of you is like, well, this can't be right. But then it's nature. And you're like, well, I guess we have to be depressed.
We go through it. We go through it every single year, and every single year, everyone's like, "I'm sad now." It's like, yeah, because the sun's gone. The
Because
sun is
this
gone.
sun's gone.
Yeah, I am very much a day creature. As much as I gig and do all that stuff, and whatever, I like the sun. The sun is my friend.
Same,
So
same.
yeah,
Yeah, I
I
love
like.
the morning time. I love like it's like yay. And if it's like you get up a little before the sun comes up and you see the sun come, it's like, oh, it's just so it's like happy times. And then
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah. And then it leaves. And then you're like, why so soon? Was it
Hmm.
something I
Well,
said?
that seasonal stuff, that's real. That's real. That's a real thing. I mean,
Very real.
you know, that sun does a lot of magical things, right? And when it's not there, you're like, where did you go?
Where
Come
did you
back.
go? And there goes my mood.
Hmm.
And there goes my happiness
Absolutely.
with it.
Yep.
Yeah, for real. For real. Yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting, right? It's like there's so much talk about like, oh, be happy and da 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 da, but it's like you look at nature, nature's like, no, this is the time where you should feel like you want to die.
Or at least hibernate, right?
Yeah,
Like,
right. It's like go to sleep. We'll
yeah.
see you next season,
This
literally.
is not the time for you to be like out and about. It's cold. It's
Right.
dark. Crawl in your cave
Literally.
and
Rest.
yeah, rest. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what you should look at it is. Not like, well, I'm sad. It's like, no, time to charge the batteries, kid.
Right, right. It's like, yeah, it's okay. You don't want to go outside. Cuddle up in a
Hmm.
blanket and just go to sleep for 3 months.
I would be on board if that's the way things worked.
Right. Oh my God. Who needs, who needs going out and using your legs? I'm all about bed sores and and
it's not
atrophied
it's
legs.
it's not so much the bed sores. It's just like if I have a gig or something like that, and it's freezing out. I mean, last thing I want to be doing is loading out gear at 1 in the morning with a wind chill of -20. You know
Oh
what I
my
mean? Like
God.
it can be miserable. So
I
and
don't miss that at all. I don't miss that at all. It's actually cool. Today I went on because it's been getting really cold out here. It's been getting to like 30s and 40s in the morning. I know everybody is like, "Oh yeah, what are you going to say when you say it's cold out there?" It actually gets cold out here. Like,
yeah, where are you in Cali?
we're in Santa Clarita. So we're like it's the LA it's still LA County, but we're kind of up closer to the mountains. But it's
Mm,
more like desert. So the winter time it drops. It really, really drops. It's close to like high desert, what they call high desert. But yeah, it's pretty dry. And during the summer it gets blistering, but it's like super dry, but it can get like 110, a couple summers ago it was like 120. Um, and then during the winter time, we get like nice rain, nice mist, because we're right here, right next to the mountains. And lately we've been waking up, it's like 35 degrees, 30 degrees, 40 degrees. It was 2 p.m. and it was still 55 degrees. And that never happens. Normally by the time the sun comes out and everything, it's like, okay, everything kind of melts and it kind of equalizes. But I went for a walk and I had my like freaking I had like a northeast jacket, you know, like a little this is a puffy jacket. It was kind of like a ski jacket. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, this is justified. Like, this is justified, right? And I had like basically like a shirt hoodie almost underneath that. And as I'm walking, I'm like getting hot. And I just start to remember it like kicked in, like being that Boston girl, being the little girl from North Dakota, like all those instincts kicked in, and like my organs were nice and warm, but my ears were freezing. And I was like, oh, taking off my jacket. And I was like, I love this. I was like totally in my element. I was like, man, this is
I'm
great.
I'm just trying not to complain about the weather. Like when people are like when people are like it's cold, it's like, yeah, I know. This happens every year. You should know it's coming.
Should
Guess
be
what?
surprised.
You're gonna be miserable in the summer. You're gonna say it's too hot out. It's so humid. It's not the heat, it's the humidity. You're gonna say all this stuff, and then essentially what you're saying is there's about 3 or 4 weeks out of the year, a couple weeks in fall and a couple weeks in spring where the weather is tolerable and you feel good. It's like,
Well, yeah, and you're just going, oh, this is so nice, but you're not really sitting there going like really taking it in. A lot of people, they'll just stay inside. They just stick to their normal routine and they just stick in a nice comment here or there, but they're not really appreciating it, you know?
well, I mean, isn't that kind of like the human condition just in life? Like
It's
I
true.
find a lot of times I will have to wait for something to become a memory before I enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah.
While I'm actually there doing the thing, it didn't feel as enjoyable. But looking back on, it, I'm like, that was a good time.
Yeah.
It's
You're
like
like, I
if
missed
only,
that.
yeah, if only I could switch that thing on then while it was going on.
Yeah.
I might be a little happier or
Yeah. And be
something.
present. Like, hey, maybe if I was just like a little more present, I wouldn't feel
Mm.
so bummed out right now that like, yeah, because that's what happens with memories, right? They become like this sort of like bittersweet thing, just looking back on it. And it's like,
Nostalgia is powerful.
yeah,
Nostalgia is powerful. That's why they keep remaking all the shows we grew up with because they're like, well,
right.
nothing's selling. Let's just go back in time.
But you know what's funny actually, now that you say that, I was looking up on I was looking at a bunch of things and I was going back to a bunch of old, I don't know how I stumbled on like old 70s films and shows and everything, and they were doing the same thing. The only difference is that there weren't as many outlets, but
Mm.
the formulas were very similar to what we're doing now. It's just that the quantity has, you know, just exploded because of so many different channels, outlets. You've got digital, you got online, and you've got cable. And then on terms of cable, you got a ton of different kinds of cable. So, but they were using a lot of the same formulas.
Mm. Well, I mean, that just goes to show you it's probably been going on since the dawn of time, since people started telling stories by the campfire.
Right.
There's probably only so many stories,
Yeah, it's
right?
like this. I mean, yeah, we looked at it. There's like really only like five stories.
Right, exactly. Even in
Guy
music,
gets the girl, guy loses the girl, guy saves the day.
yeah, the hero story, whatever, right? And but I mean, same thing with music too. There's only so many songs, right? There's like four or
Right.
five songs, like, but
Right.
would they just keep getting recycled? And
Yeah.
that's all well and good as long as people find enjoyment out of it, right?
Right. What are your favorite kind of songs to perform?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
Whatever feels good at that moment in time.
Okay.
Um, and things are funny too. Like songs that I absolutely hate
Yeah.
can be fun.
Yeah.
Like I have played "Play That Funky Music, White Boy" more times than I want to admit. But here's the thing.
But
Here's the
it's
thing.
fun.
I, I don't like that song, but when I'm playing it and a crowd
You're
full
like
of
jamming,
people
right?
likes it and they're dancing, then I can forget about it for a little bit. You know, I
Yeah.
had an epiphany. I was doing a show one time, not that long ago, and we were playing Sweet Home Alabama, another song that I don't care if I ever hear ever again. And I'm just kind of on autopilot, just playing the chords and whatever. And
Yeah.
I look in the back, and there's this guy singing his ass off to Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, you know, I have no idea what this guy's week was like. I have
Yeah.
no idea what he's going through in his personal life. But
Right.
for whatever reason, he feels the need to let his hair down now, and Sweet Home Alabama is his savior.
Yeah.
So shut up and play the song, right? But I suppose the thing that I like to play the most is I like a lot of classic R&B, a lot of
Mhm.
like Bill Withers, Sly and the Family, that kind of stuff. It's
Nice.
upbeat, it's dancey, it grooves.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time too, like I'm very I like everything.
Yeah.
To me, there's only good and bad, right? So
Yeah.
there are a lot of rock songs that I like. There's a lot of pop songs that I like. There's a lot of jazz songs that I like. There's a lot of classical songs that I like. I guess you know certain things hit me in different ways at
Yeah.
different times.
Yeah. I feel like that's so relatable, honestly, because like you really can't judge someone by like what they're listening to in that moment because there's so much music out there, and I think now more than ever people have an incredibly diverse and eclectic range of interest in music. Like no joke, I was absolutely jamming to Offspring. There's just some of those albums, man, like they rock so hard, and I just
But
you
and plus, there's the nostalgia to it too. I mean,
right.
during the summer, I was going through a lot of the old punk stuff that I grew up in. I mean,
Oh, right?
music,
Oh,
music's
man.
music's music's a time machine.
Totally,
You know,
totally.
you're listening to something that meant the world to you back in the year
Yeah,
2000, and
absolutely.
all of a sudden, you know, you're a
Transported
freshman
back
in high
there.
school again. Yep. What's
Yeah,
that?
100%. I'm transported back there. Exactly.
Actually, at that same show with the guy with Sweet Home Alabama, another song that we played that I didn't really care for is, you know, Love That Dirty Water. Oh, Boston, you're my home. Like, again,
Yeah.
great song. Nothing
I mean,
against it.
It's a Boston anthem.
Right, exactly. Like, I'm not going to mess with it. I'm going to leave it where it is. I get it, all that stuff. But again, it's not the most exciting song to play.
Right.
It's not personally what I would
Right.
choose to play if I
Right.
was the one in charge of the set list or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm outside smoking, and this lady, she comes up to me and she says, "Thank you guys for playing that song, Dirty
Oh,
Water." And I said, "Oh yeah, no problem, you know, and it's what we do." And she's like, "Yeah, but she's like, you don't understand. Like, I was married to a guy that was in the military, and we were always moving all over the place. So every time I hear that song, I was always brought back to Boston." I
I
was like,
love
so
that.
like, oh, so this is like a transcendental experience for you. It's not just here and Love That Dirty Water.
Right.
You're thinking about traveling all over the country, getting homesick,
Yeah.
and a song brings you back home, even
Mhm.
momentarily. So it's music
100%.
is a very powerful thing.
100%. 100%. Yeah, totally. Yeah, well, I went from Offspring, and then like the next day I was like jamming to Taylor Swift. I mean, and then
It
like,
happens. It
and she's a
happens.
mood. She's a mood. Like you know what I mean? And there was this hilarious. I was watching this TikTok where it's like guilty. It was like songs that are a guilty pleasure that we secretly rock out to. And there was like, and this is a dude who's like a series producer, really good guy, you know. And he's just like Spice Girls the song is on there. And like all these like awesome songs where you're like, yeah, when it comes on, you can't help it. You're just like,
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to pretend. I'm going to pretend that I don't want my man card revoked or anything like that. But when Dancing Queen comes on by ABBA, I
oh
can't
my,
help but like this song kind of slaps.
oh
So
my
it's like
God, yes.
you just can't help. A good song is a good song. It doesn't matter.
There's just some songs you're just like you feel it. And I think also with age, maybe when you're younger and you hear it, you're just kind of like you're just enjoying the song really naively. But then when you get older, and you know a little something about music, you know a little something about production, and you hear it again, you're just like, you appreciate it also just so much more. You're just like,
It might
wow.
also well, it might also be you just you've learned something about life too,
Yeah.
right? Like there's certain songs that, like, again, I didn't care for, just like taste buds change,
Uh-huh.
earbuds change or whatever. So like I remember one time, like, Wild Horses by the Rolling Stones, for example. This is a
Mhm.
classic example that, like,
Yeah.
for me, all right, it was kind of like blah. It's in a bunch of movies and, like, it's kind of a
Right.
boring song. But one day I was just in a mood and I was on the highway and the skies opened up and it was pouring and that song came out and it hit me, you know? So it's like there are different times where different things hit you different ways.
Yeah.
And again, it was at a point where it's like I'm not this young music snob. I'm an older music snob, right? So
Yeah.
but the point is, at that moment in time I was ready to hear it, you know.
Right. Right. I love that. I love that. Yeah, and you know a little bit of something about that, right? Like when you're ready for something to happen. And I think age does that to you when you realize you can't fight time, you get a little older. And also just as things happen to you, you just realize like, okay, we go through the shit storms, we go through a lot, and then we're able to, at the end of it, not just learn something from those micro events, but also how to just kind of accept, to be open, and to go through and just be ready to experience things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, acceptance is, for me, that's a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like gratitude, it's almost like trendy at this point. Like, I'm not saying don't be grateful. I have a little gratitude thing that I say to myself,
Nice.
just to keep myself in check. But
Yeah.
on the other side of that coin, I think acceptance is right up there too.
Oh,
If you're not
absolutely.
if you're not willing to accept where you are at this moment in time, that doesn't mean you're stuck there forever, but you have to. For me, I'm trying not to lie to myself, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, I also tell myself this, don't believe you're not naive, because I know there are ways that I'm lying to myself
Oh, yeah.
every time, but at the same time, to be honest with myself that, like, maybe you're full of shit, but whatever you're going through at that moment in time, you have to accept it. And I think with age and as things go on, right, you lose some of that wide-eyed optimism you had as a youth, right? So
Mhm.
maybe at that moment in time I had gone through enough things that I was ready to hear Wild Horses, right?
Mhm.
That I felt the emotion behind that song, and I was ready to accept it. I was ready to let it take me over, I guess.
Yeah,
Right.
totally. Totally. Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about gratitude and acceptance, because I agree. I actually think that the when you go through the true gratitude like life cycle, and you really experience the extent of gratitude, it's actually transforms into acceptance, because I think in the beginning, gratitude is a form of making sure that you're thankful, right? Making sure that you remember what it is that you have, which the byproduct of that is guilt, is this sort of underlying, like, okay, like I've got to be grateful for what I have. I've got to remember what I've got. I've got to, and
Yeah,
that can,
it almost becomes a chore.
yeah, well, and it becomes this in for people who already suffer from like being worried about not being grateful enough, because that's what ends up happening, especially for people who are like doing better than, say, their family or their friends, or aren't doing well and feel like gratitude is the thing that's the gap. And because everyone's telling them to be grateful, there's this feeling of like, okay, I'm not grateful enough. I'm not grateful enough. And it creates this friction, when in reality, once you get past and you really experience gratitude in its full extent, it actually becomes acceptance. It's when you realize that everything you have is a gift,
Mm.
and you're supposed to just accept what
Well,
it
I
is you
think I
have and
think
where
what
you are.
I think what you're hitting on is that gratitude in and of itself isn't enough, right? That what you actually, or surface level, like if you turn something into a have to, like
Mhm.
I have to do this, then there's something in your brain that goes, nah, don't. I don't, or I
Isn't that
don't want
funny how we do that as humans? We're like,
to.
something's wrong here.
Right, right. It's like you're fighting it because you say I have to do it.
Right.
When if you just kind, like for me, I just go, I wake up and I just go, oh, thank you. I'm still
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah. I'm
So
like,
are
this
all
is
the people I
awesome.
love.
Right.
And then I tell myself, if at the end of this day, it's the same way that it started, that I'm still alive, and so are all the people I love, then no matter what happens, today is a good day. So thank
Mm.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And it's an appreciation and an actual gratitude, not just like I'm making a list of all the grateful things. Give me 3 things you're grateful for. It's like, no, no, not none of that. What are you actually thankful for that you got? You don't have to do it. But if you come in there with the right mindset, if you look at it from the right angle, then I think you're dead on. That it does turn into an acceptance of all the other shit that you don't want to like about yourself, or that isn't going right in your life. That at least you can kind of go, all right, well, at least I got this. But there is something weird that happens, right? That it's like intuitively, we all know it's like things could be a lot worse. Be grateful with what you got, but that that doesn't erase bad feelings, does it?
Right. Right. And that you have to honor that too. You have to honor when you're going through a rough time. I think that, positivity culture is a really good thing, but it's everything in moderation too, right? Like you have to recognize when you're not feeling great and honor that space. Just kind of like how we're talking about the seasons before, right? Like it's important to go through cycles. It's important to experience the spectrum. And I think that, what you're talking about before of like that sort of have to, you sort of like have to force yourself into that. It is a good exercise if you feel like, it's really hard for you to think about anything to be grateful for, right? It's
Mm.
like, all right, let's do this as an exercise. Let's just try to reawaken the muscle, right? But if you're self aware enough and you know your cycles enough, sometimes it's just a matter of like, no, you know what? I just need to be in this pity party right now and just feel my emotions and just feel down on myself because I know that at the end of this, I'm going to be able to come out of it, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, things that ebb and flow all the time. Like I'm someone that is prone to depression. This is what I've become aware of,
Mhm.
right? But here's the thing: is when I ignore that depression, when I pretend it's not there, when I act that when I'm trying to not look at it, it's out in the parking lot doing push-ups and getting ready for me,
Right.
and it comes back with a vengeance. So the best thing to do is to befriend it and
Mhm.
go, yo, this is a facet of who you are, rather than trying to deny this person. I mean, and there's times where I have to like kind of Kevin McAllister in Home Alone, just tell the furnace to shut up, and like
Yeah. I
sometimes
love that. It's true.
well, sometimes that's enough.
Such
Sometimes
a
like if I'm
great
like,
scene.
blah, 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 and I could just go, shut up. Like
Mhm.
that's not real.
Right.
That's this voice in my head, the judge that's trying to make me feel bad about some bullshit. Right.
Mhm.
But at the same time, if I'm actually stuck in a depressive cycle, then I have to recognize to myself, it's like, yo, we got to have a chat here. What's eating Gilbert Grape?
Yeah.
What is going on? What are you experiencing?
Right.
And sometimes, it's something as simple as loneliness. Sometimes it's something as not enough sunlight.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's pride. I've
Yeah.
realized that about myself, that how could like pride lead to depression? It's like,
Mhm.
well, you're not happy where you are in life because you think you deserve more. And
Right.
sometimes that's just excess baggage that you don't need to carry with you.
Yeah.
And that's, it was kind of a weird realization that, huh, actually, I don't have low self-esteem. Maybe I hold myself in too high of esteem. And I
Mm.
got to kind of have a reality check that's like, yo, maybe you think you deserve more than you actually have, right? So
Mhm.
I, I'm telling you, obviously the struggle's real, right? But sometimes that guy, that voice is full of shit, and I don't need to listen to him.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's got a point,
Right.
and sometimes I think what he's trying to do is say, you can do better,
Right.
right?
Right. 100%. Yeah, I relate with that a lot, and that's something that I've definitely I've always known that I've been prone to like super big mood swings and being like almost borderline manic, right? Like just huge mood swings of being like super, um, just super hyper motivated, super just hyper present with people, and just full of fire. And then, crashing and burning, like just tragically, right? And I've always known that I've kind of had these tendencies, but it wasn't until, everything's going great in my life. And I'm like, why am I still having these cycles every like 2, 3 months? Right. And it's only through the process of me having been able to like get to know myself and all the work that I've done on myself and all the self-awareness that I've put the time into. It's a lot of work, but it's made me realize like, oh, I know when a swing is coming and I know when I need to ask myself certain questions, right? Like especially as a woman, like, is this hormonal, right? Is
Mm.
this hormonal? Is this seasonal? Is that, was there a trigger? Was there like, what are the things that might have, set me off, like sleep wise? You have to go through this list. And I feel like the better your self-awareness becomes, you get better at asking yourself certain questions to kind of figure
Yeah,
out.
because sometimes it's something really stupid, like I'm dehydrated and I'm in a
Oh
pissy
my
mood.
God, literally, or like I'm hungry.
Yeah, it's something. Sometimes it's something that simple, but sometimes it's something bigger that
Right.
that requires a little bit of unpacking. No,
Right,
I'm with
right.
you. And here's the thing: is for those people that are doing the work, that are taking those steps. Every day you get to understand yourself a little bit better, a little bit smoother, and you're more prepared for it the next time it comes around.
Yeah.
Like I'll give you a case in point to from like a physical perspective, like being a mechanic
Mhm.
when I did that work, right? When you're a mechanic, right? When you don't know things and you lack the experience, you might do this job with just a set of basic wrenches, and then this whole time you don't realize there's a special tool to deal with this that makes this job much easier, right?
Right.
So extrapolate that into your own internal struggle. That sometimes you just need to, with a little bit of experience and a little bit of knowledge, you need to find the right tool. And
It's
there are so many
everything.
different tools out there,
That's
right?
everything. That's, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, not to, be punny, but like literally
Ah,
it's literally like that's why, when we say do the work or doing work on yourself or putting the time into, that that's why. That's why, because there's a whole world of knowledge that you don't have access to right now. And every time you put in an effort, you go, oh my God, here's the cheat code,
mm-hmm.
right?
Well,
Like,
I'll tell you one of my cheat codes is one of the things that I realized is like when I was in a really bad depression, because I've had a couple of those episodes where it's like
mhm,
major depression, you don't even have the energy to shower, get up, do
mhm,
anything,
right.
right? Well, I kind of looked at what I was doing. And it's like, all right, you're watching Netflix 17 hours a day. You're not doing anything. No wonder you're depressed. So it's like, okay, then I heard somebody say that, well, depression is anger turned inwards. So
Mm,
I had this idea that, okay, well, maybe I need to get in touch with my aggression. Maybe I need to do something physical. So I
mhm,
started doing boxing, right? And
nice.
just as a workout, I get no illusions of being the heavyweight champion of the world or anything like that.
What? No
But
illusions.
I don't know, maybe I'm a contender. But no, but the point is all of a sudden I started hitting things and I can't even tell you how therapeutic it was. It
Mm,
was just, it was like instead of putting this resentment towards me, I can just hit this bag. And even if I'm imagining me hitting myself or somebody else,
yeah,
whatever the case may be,
yeah.
there was something healthy
It was
about that
cathartic.
release. Yeah, but it was something healthy about that release of aggression that started to awaken genes in me that have been lying dormant since I don't know, as long as they have been, probably since I was a kid. You know,
Yeah.
I broke my hip when I was 12 years old, and that kind of ended my sports career, if you will.
Yeah.
But there was something about me when I was a young kid that I liked physical sports. I liked that kind of aggressiveness, right?
Yeah.
And getting back in touch with it just kind of all of a sudden, you're changing that brain chemistry in your head. And it's like, geez,
Totally.
I don't feel so bad about myself anymore,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. 100%. I love that. I mean, yeah, there's so much in there that like, I relate so much with all of that. And also just like I love how it was you kind of went through this intuitive thought process of, "Hey, I heard someone told me that depression is right." I feel like those little nuggets of information are so God-given, so universal, like they're just gifts from the universe, right? They're just blessings. And it's so unique to each individual person. That's why it's so important to be listening, to be aware. That's why the idea of like opportunity is all around you is because there's little nuggets of wisdom that are completely catered to you and your situation and what you need to hear at that moment in time. You just need to be listening. You just need to be open because maybe that wouldn't help or wouldn't be the right thing for someone else, right?
Absolutely.
But it was
Yeah.
the right thing for you and you were willing to listen to it and it you resonated. It resonated with you, right?
Well, I think what you're getting at is that there's no wrong way to eat a Reese's, right? Is that if the end goal is to be in a better place, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, all that stuff, then by any means necessary, right?
Right,
It doesn't have to be exercise or boxing. I mean, that stuff helps.
right.
If you're exercising, if you're getting enough water, if you're getting good sleep, all that stuff is going to help.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of tailor to what your nature is.
Yeah.
What makes you lose track of time? What makes you kind of like be like, I'm here for this?
Yeah.
Another thing for me that was huge, me and my dad, we did this survival in the woods 101 class.
Oh
In
my
in
God.
Saugus,
I've
in
been
Saugus, they have this American outdoor school. So it was like learn how to build a fire, how to use a knife
I wanna do
safely,
that.
learn how to build a shelter, learn how to like basic stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, like it was like a 2 3 hour class or whatever. It went by like this because I was like, okay,
It's a
this
lot.
is something. This
Yeah.
is something that is healing to, like, it
Yeah.
is opening up
Yeah.
genes that have been dormant since probably, I don't know,
Totally. And actually
100,000 BC.
it's totally funny you say that too, because I was just watching this documentary. I don't know if you heard of it. It's Limitless with Chris Hemsworth.
This sounds familiar. I haven't seen it though.
It just came out. It just came out. Super recommend it. But there's this part in there where they talk about like brain health and he basically goes through all these different ways to essentially unleash like the human potential and how to create longevity in the human experience through different ways, physically but it and then mentally, right? And one of them he talks about they talk about the amygdala and the hippocampus. And these things, we're using them less because we're not, for many, many reasons. But one of the things is when we put things like on autopilot, like when we're using, and one of the biggest things was like when we're using our phone to navigate and we're not using our natural instincts to navigate, that is actually causing dormancy. Is that what it is? But it's
Hmm.
like it creates dormancy in especially the hippocampus because that's your memory
Memory.
center.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you're not so like one of the things he does is they put him on a trek in the outback with no phone, with no map, with nothing, purely memory. They're like you going over in a helicopter and he's got a buddy with him, but that's all that they have. And they were saying like you have to do things like this on a regular basis. And it's totally scientific. Like when humans are in nature, we feel more balanced. We feel like more balanced brain chemistry happening because that's like you said, it's like being awakened within us, right? Like we want that. We thirst for it.
I mean, we're talking the technological revolution is very recent, and the
Yeah.
industrial revolution was, this is a small chunk of human history. For
Mhm.
most of our history, we were out there surviving out in the wilderness,
Oh yeah.
building fires and telling stories,
Oh yeah.
and our amygdalas were firing more often because there were more threats.
Yeah.
Now it's like it's and I could see that makes sense that things are shrinking. and now they're it's almost like you need a little bit of this to kind of get you to the next stage.
Mhm.
So I mean, I didn't do anything this crazy, like being let out in the middle of the wilderness.
I mean, it would be
But the
cool
other
though.
Yeah, but no, but the other day, just to be like, I'm not completely useless. The other day, I was just driving in like somewhere in Braintree or Weymouth that I wasn't familiar with, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna figure out how to get out of here from without using GPS. I'm gonna
Wow,
figure
look
this
at
out.
you.
Well,
In the wild of
this
Boston, which
right. No, but
which
like
is
this
a,
was me.
a mess by itself.
I'm just I my solution was I'm just gonna keep going east until I run into water, and that's gonna be like the
That's
way home,
hilarious.
right? And it probably there was probably a million different roads, but the point was I made it home, right?
Oh, nice.
You don't need well, I'm not giving myself a huge pat on the back, but there
It's
is
something though.
we are too reliant on the phones, and there is something to sitting there and learning how to make a shelter, or learning how to make things with knives and axes and saws. That it's just kind of it awakens a part of you, right?
Mhm.
The campfire, the fire, is the original TV set. There is
Yeah,
some there's something
totally.
to
We've
just
talked
sitting there
about this.
watching the fire.
We've
Yeah.
talked about this, yeah, where it's like you're like fire. I remember you were messaging me. You were like, "I'm watching Fire right now." You're like, "Fire."
It's something. I mean, it's my happy spot. Like I
Same.
need time to kind of just sit there and like like for me, I like meditating. I like the rewards of meditating. It's hard for me to stick to a routine. Sometimes I fall off. Sometimes I'm really good at it,
Mhm.
but it always feels like work to me.
Right.
Right. But for whatever reason, I make a fire. I can sit there and I can forget I have a phone for 3 hours. Like I don't even look at the stupid thing,
Oh, yeah.
and it's really nice,
Yeah.
or going out for a little walk or whatever. There's
Honestly, it
something.
amps me up when I see fire. I'm calm, and then I'm like, and I get so like amped. I just want to like get total like, yeah, like it becomes a like a party in my body for sure. I'm just like, ah, yeah,
Well, I mean, there's definitely to something to awakening genes that have been asleep.
right.
I find this when even a more simple example is if I eat certain foods, like I'm Greek, Puerto Rican, right? If
Mhm.
I eat the store-bought feta cheese, blah. But if we go to the Greek store and get the stuff that's right off the island, it's like I can feel the
You're
ancestors that make up
home.
my DNA go, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's
Like
so
it
funny
hits
you say
something.
that because that's actually something I've been going through a lot lately. The last 6 months to a year, it's been a roller coaster ride with my stomach. I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden it's just been out of whack and it just hasn't been able to normalize. And I had this epiphany the other day where I was like, I was watching this I've been I've been also been on a personal journey of like rediscovering my roots. We've talked about this and like my indigenous ancestors and like on my dad's side through his mom. And it's been a lot. But also part of that is like reconnecting with a culture and a heritage that I didn't really have that much access to growing up anyways. And not because I didn't want to, right? And I was watching, and as I've been, getting in more in touch with Mexico and learning all these things about Mexico, I was watching this docu-series on Netflix. It's like tacos, like seen, barreras. It's like, without frontiers, basically seen and like
Hmm.
across the and this woman's talking about the taco, and she says that gastroeconomically or whatever, it's one of the most balanced um, foods in the entire world because you have sweet, you have sour, you have salty, you have as she's saying, I'm like, balance. I'm like, oh my God, I need to eat Mexican food. And literally, it was like I immediately felt a shift. I immediately
Hmm.
felt like it doesn't make sense in scientific terms, like you're saying, right? Like it does like the fettuccine from there to the fettuccine to the other fettuccine, like scientifically speaking, it shouldn't make that big of a difference. But on the soul level, You feel that difference. You
No,
know
no,
that.
it's your spirit. It's your DNA telling
Yeah,
you, yep, this is it.
this is
This
it.
is it.
This is
And
home.
well, this is the people that made you up.
Mhm,
This is what they ate. This is
mhm.
what they survived on. This is why you have a taste
Yes.
for it. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
and I mean, for me, like if I eat authentic Greek food, it like olives from Greece,
Yeah.
that feta cheese, the cassetti cheese, the stuff that is made right from that land. It's like I
Mhm.
hear it and I feel that those people that made that DNA
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
please
It's
more of this, please
yeah,
more of
it's
this.
singing. They're like, "Oh."
Yeah, but I mean, people forget that stuff, and you know what?
Yeah.
There is a lot of good stuff to knowing your roots and
Yeah.
to going back in your ancestry. Because I mean,
Yeah.
Puerto Ricans, yeah, you know, we're they're mutts too,
Yeah.
and so we got indigenous roots there,
Mhm.
African roots there, Spanish,
Mhm.
Portuguese.
Oh, yeah.
That's basically my mom's genetic makeup. She got her ancestry done or whatever,
Yeah.
but there is something to. That's why I've always had like a connection with Native American culture or whatever. And it's like, you
Mhm.
know, I would never identify as one,
Right.
you know,
Right.
but at the same time, I like a lot of the stuff that those homies are putting down, you know.
Right.
I
Well,
agree
and
with it.
it's important because they remind us of the relationship with Mother Earth, and that's something that we're forgetting as a society, right? I think it's one of those things. It's like it's easy to kind of bypass what the importance of indigenous and old heritage, right? Because you can be like, oh, well, in with the modern, right? But so it's like, why actively ask you, okay, why is it important? It's important because they remind us of the importance of being connected to the land that we're on, right? Without greed, without this sense of being more important than. And that's something that we're losing a lot of. So it when you already have a natural intuition towards those things, right? Indigenous cultures really sing to you because you're like, yeah, they like you said, right? I'm picking up what they're putting down for sure. Like we need more of
I
that.
mean, and for me, it's just practical too. It's simple stuff. If you are feeling like you're lacking connection or significance or meaning or to the environment around you because you spend all day in Never Land or whatever, well, if you hear some dudes talking about how the earth is your mother, the sky is your father, the sun your grandfather, and the moon your grandmother, and if you look at things from that perspective, then that's going to be much closer to you. And that's why, you know, like I find a lot of peace in nature. I find a lot of peace of doing that American outdoor school thing. Me and my dad, we did this one is just like identifying different trees.
That's
And like,
cool.
you know, like we're doing this in our spare time, but like
Yeah.
at a certain point in time, if you didn't know what was what, that might be life and death. You know, this tree is going to
Yeah.
help us. This one's got medicine. This one's got poison. This
Yeah.
one's what we're going to build our homes out of, or
Right.
whatever. It,
Yeah.
it, 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 it I think that we're kind of so we're kind of so used to this modern era of kind of like I don't know, maybe like doing things for likes or acting like we're all on our
Right. We
own.
want the instant gratification. It's the
Yeah.
external, which is the masculine energy. Everything's yin yang, right? So there's intrinsic, there's the internal experience, and then there's the external experience. And the internal experience is more, the divine feminine, and the external experience is more the divine masculine. And not saying like how on the external or the external is bad or physical form is bad because it's important for the entire experience. But when we rely on one side, on one form, right? On
Mm.
one end of that spectrum, it's something that has created imbalance, which is what we've been doing, which is that hyper sensitivity around how do I look? How are people perceiving me? What can I do so people see this and that I don't come off as that? And da 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 da. And how can I, right? It's all presentation.
And at the end of the day, you need both,
You
right?
need both. You need both.
At the end of the day, you need both. In fact, one of the things that's why I like what the natives say. That the medicine wheel is a very simple, practical way to get in touch with spirituality,
Mhm.
right? That you're four parts. your emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, right? So the way that I simplified it for me, it's like, all right, so everybody's part mind, heart, body, and soul.
Right.
And if anything is disconnected or if anything is out of balance, that's going to cause turmoil in you. So if my head and my heart don't agree and I ignore that, it's going to compound interest and it's going to come back and bite me in the ass. So I got to
Exactly.
have that conversation. It's like, what's going on? Why don't you two get along with each other? What is happening?
Right.
Right.
Having that conversation with yourself. Totally.
But that's I mean, yeah, I mean, and the war of life is trying to balance all those forces in you, right?
Yeah.
And it continues because things shift, things change. And I mean, I'll let you know when I figure it out, because I obviously haven't.
You
But
better.
but yeah, but still being aware that it's like, something ain't right here.
Yeah.
Something isn't right. What's
Yeah.
going on? And
100%.
and if you're honest with yourself, you can usually get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Again, going back to the mechanic analogy, when someone comes in with a problem with a car, there's a solution for it. You can fix it, right?
Yeah.
But if that person just drives and acts like they don't need brakes, well,
They're
at
gonna
some
get
point you
the
might want
answer
to
for
stop.
that.
Yeah, at some point you might want to stop, and you might not be able to, right? So
Right.
the
Yeah,
same
that's a
the
good point.
same
Like that.
this same kind of thing, right? And people have made that joke before. It's like I feel like I'm walking around with my check engine light on, right?
I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. If you ignore it too long, it's going to come back and bite you. But I think for people like us that are doing the work, and there's plenty of us out there, and the thing to remind yourself too is that sometimes it's just hard. It's it's
You just
always
gotta
hard.
muscle through it.
Yeah. So
There's no fancy way. It's just you just gotta get to the other end of the field if it's kicking, screaming,
it's
crawling.
it's
If
always
it's
hard, even when it's
if it's
easy.
micro inch by inch, like whatever, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's not about grace. It's just about get her done.
Forward. Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 I mean, I think it was Plato that said something like never discourage progress no matter how slow it is. So that's kind of what it is too, is
I
and
love
that's
that.
part of the problem of having the instant gratification
Yeah.
mentality. It's because sometimes things take time.
Yeah.
Sometimes things take work. If you want muscles, you can't go to the gym one time.
Yeah.
If you want to, that inner peace, you can't just meditate one day. It's these, you have to take these baby steps to make them habits, and that's the hardest thing to do, right? The best I ever felt, Pilar, was when I was getting up every day, was making my bed, was going for like a couple, three, like 2 3 mile walk, and then I would come home and like do like a little stretch and yoga, whatever, and then I would meditate, and that was my morning routine. And I fell off of it. But the thing was, is that for like 2 or 3 months, I was every day, like clockwork. And it was just a good way to set the pace for the day. Because you think like you have these epiphanies, and you're like, oh, I've got it. I'm always gonna be this good. It's like, here's tomorrow. It says
Here's
different.
tomorrow. Welcome to tomorrow.
Yeah, welcome to tomorrow, where you forgot everything you just learned.
Yeah. I love that. Greg, you're I wish we had more time to talk. We're definitely going to have a part 2 because I feel like you're just a wonderful like vertical slice of the entire spectrum of the human experience. I feel like and you've been through so much and you're so able to be wise and present and talk with such realness and talk with such life experience. Like I can't wait to have you back so we can talk even more about other things that I wanted to talk about, but I feel like this was perfect. I feel like we talked about exactly
Good.
what we needed to for like intro to Greg.
Ah, well, that's a good way to put it. Thank you for your kind
Yeah,
words. I
you're very
appreciate that.
welcome. You're very
But
welcome.
I also enjoyed talking to you too, because there is this, there are some people that want to act like this level isn't out there or whatever, but it's just about feeling better, right? At the end of the day, it's just about finding things for you to make you feel better,
100%.
and whatever, again, by any means necessary.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
totally.
I think what I I have a hard time looking at my own struggle and being like, oh, that was that tough or whatever like that. But when people tell me that it was like tough, it's like, oh yeah, it kind of was.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Which I think
It
is
was
like the
hard.
benefit of these kind of conversations and us reconnecting. right? It was a lot of that. It was also just kind of like an opportunity to get like a fresh lens on where we've been all these years, because we haven't talked since high school, dude.
Pretty
So it was
much,
like,
yeah.
yeah, and then we just reconnected randomly,
But
and
it was kind of like we're in a similar
perfect
space.
timing. Yeah, it
Right.
was perfect timing. It was perfect timing. And so I'm just so grateful for you, and really happy that you were able to make the time and do this with me.
Well, let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Amen. All right, dude. I'll talk to you later, okay?
All right. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
Bye
Bye.
bye.